If you're listening to this, just take a second and check your signal strength. Make sure you're encrypted.
We look clear on this end.
Okay, good. We are clear. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Sunday, March 1st, 2028. And we're broadcasting a little later than usual tonight because, well, let's just be honest. The daylight feels a little less friendly these days. I am your guide through the noise.
And I'm here to help you find the actual signal. And just looking at this massive stack of research on the desk tonight, I have to say, the signal is pretty distressing.
Distressing is putting it mildly. I mean, I actually had to leave my phone in the other room while I was reading through these sources earlier today. I didn't want the thing near me. It literally felt like it was listening to me, like it was judging me.
I don't blame you. The architecture we're dealing with is designed to make you feel exactly that way.
Right. Because today we are talking about a shift in human history that, and I really don't want to sound hyperbolic here, but it's probably as significant as the invention of the printing press, just, in reverse.
That is a completely fair comparison. We're calling this deep dive into the sources the last free minds.
Which obviously implies that there are unfree minds out there.
Implicitly, yes.
Yeah.
We're looking at the foundational architecture of the world you are living in right now. Tonight, we're going to peel back the layers of what the research calls the Digital Panopticon. We're going to define a term that genuinely kept me up last night, neural serfdom.
Yeah, that one gave me chills.
It should. And then, eventually, we're going to try to find a way out based on the texts.
An escape hatch.
Or a bunker. The sources call it the inner citadel.
Okay, so before we get into the bunker, we really have to understand what we're running from. Because 10 years ago, even just 5 years ago, when people talked about a loss of freedom, they were talking about jail. Handcuffs, physical bars.
Right, coercion by chains. That is the old world.
Exactly. But the research we have here, it argues that the walls actually went up while we were all just staring at our screens, and we didn't even notice the mortar drying. We were too busy, liking posts and tracking our daily steps.
That's because the walls aren't made of brick anymore. They're made of data. And the guards are not people you can actually see.
So let's start at the beginning of the research, or I guess the beginning of the end, because you cannot understand the reality of 2028 without understanding a very, very strange man from the 1700s, a guy named Jeremy Bentham.
Jerry Bentham. Now, most people who took Philosophy 101 probably know the name. He's the father of utilitarianism.
Right, the whole greatest good for the greatest number thing.
Right.
Which sounds nice, right? It sounds super democratic.
On paper, sure. But Bentham was, he was an unusual character. He was entirely obsessed with efficiency. He didn't look at a human being and see a soul or some divine spark or a mystery. He essentially saw a biological machine.
Just inputs and outputs?
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
He believed that humans were governed by two sovereign masters, and those are pleasure and pain. That's it. Everything you do, every complex thought you think you have, every deep emotion, Bentham would argue that's just you running a biological calculation to maximize your pleasure and minimize your pain.
It's just a very robotic view of humanity. It completely strips away all the poetry of being human.
It does. And because he viewed us as machines, his logical conclusion was that we could be optimized. He wanted to fix society. He used this phrase, he wanted to grind rogues honest.
Grind rogues honest. That is such a visceral phrase. It sounds so industrial.
It was meant to be industrial. And his specific machine for doing that wasn't a new law or religion. It was an actual building, the Panopticon.
Okay, lay out the blueprint of this thing for us. Because looking at the source notes, this isn't just a prison design. It's a psychological weapon. I've seen the old sketches, but can you explain the actual mechanism?
So imagine a circular building, a massive hollow ring. The prison cells are lined up all along the outer wall, and they're facing inward.
Kind of like a sports stadium?
A bit like a stadium, but reversed. The audience is the prisoners. And in the dead center of the ring, there's a tall tower. He called it the inspection house.
Okay, so the guard stands in the tower.
Yes. But here is the absolute genius and the horror of the design. It is all about the lighting. Bentham specified that the cells should have windows on the outside wall and the inside wall, so the sunlight floods completely through the cell, backlighting the prisoner.
So the prisoner is basically just a silhouette from the tower's perspective.
Completely exposed. There is absolutely nowhere to hide in the cell. Every single movement is visible against the light. But the tower is pitch black. It has these heavy blinds, zigzag partitions, specialized viewing ports. The prisoner can look at that central tower 24 hours a day, but they can never, ever see the guard.
So you don't know if you're actually being watched at any given moment.
You cannot know. The guard might be staring right at you, or
Yeah.
he might be eating a sandwich, he might be asleep, you might not even be in the tower at all. But because you can't verify it, you have to assume the eye is always on you.
And that fundamentally changes how you act.
Completely. This is what the literature calls apparent omnipresence.
Apparent omnipresence. Man, that sounds heavy.
The key is that the surveillance doesn't actually have to be constant. It just has to be possible at any moment. When that happens, the prisoner stops needing the guard. The prisoner internalizes the guard. You start policing yourself. You hold back your own rebellion because the risk of being caught is just always there.
You literally become your own jailer.
Exactly. And that creates what the sociologists call a docile body, a compliant machine.
It's terrifying because it works so well. And it brings us to this wildly macabre detail about Bentham that I found in the deep dive notes. I honestly thought this was a myth when I first read it, or some weird internet creepypasta, but it is real.
You mean the auto icon?
The auto icon, yes. This guy was so obsessed with observation and reality that when he died, he didn't even want to be buried.
No, he didn't. He left very specific instructions in his will. He wanted his body to be dissected, which was highly taboo at the time, by the way. And then he wanted it preserved. He wanted to be stuffed, dressed in his everyday clothes, and sat upright in a chair.
And he is literally currently sitting in a glass box at University College London.
He is. You can go visit him right now. Or, well, his skeleton padded out with hay and a wax head.
But here's the twist that makes it just too perfect for 2028. The notes say that a few years ago, the university installed a webcam inside his glass case.
You really couldn't write a better script. The dead philosopher who invented the very concept of total surveillance is now, largely, a surveillance device himself.
The observer became the observed.
It is the perfect metaphor. Bentham is watching us via the webcam, and we are watching him via the internet stream. It's a completely closed loop of observation.
And honestly, Bentham would have absolutely loved the internet, wouldn't he?
Oh, he would have thought it was utopia. Pure utopia.
Yeah.
Because of his philosophic calculus.
Okay, break this down for us. Philosophic calculus. It sounds like a spell from a wizarding school, but it's actually math.
It is the algorithm of morality. Bentham believed that because we are just machines driven by pleasure and pain, you could mathematically calculate the morality of any action. You just add up the variables.
But you can't just add up variables to decide what's right and wrong. That's insane.
Is it? Bentham would say that's exactly what you do every day.
Wrong.
He had a specific list of variables: intensity, duration, certainty, and propinquity.
Propinquity. That is a $5 word right there.
It just means nearness in time. How soon does the pleasure actually happen?
Instant gratification.
Exactly. And humans, we are notoriously terrible at this math. We drastically overvalue propinquity. We want the donut right now that's high propinquity, even if we know it causes heart disease in 10 years, which is low propinquity.
Right.
The immediate pleasure just outweighs the distant pain.
So we basically hack our own code just for the immediate hit.
Right. And Bentham argued that the state's job is to step in and adjust those variables for us
How do they do that?
by introducing artificial pain or pleasure. Take a speeding ticket, for example. Driving fast is fun, so that's pleasure. Crashing your car is bad, pain, but it's uncertain and hopefully far away. So the state puts up a speed camera. Now the pain, which is the fine, is highly certain and immediate. They change the math, so you change your behavior.
Okay, so back in the 1700s, that was a speed trap or a brick prison. But today, the state isn't just the government anymore, it's the algorithm.
Which brings us to section 2 of our research, the nature of selection documents. Because the central tower isn't a brick building in the middle of a courtyard anymore.
It's in my pocket.
It's on your wrist. It's the smart thermostat hanging on your wall.
And the guard in the tower is the algorithm.
And unlike the human guard, the algorithm never, ever sleeps. It never takes a break to eat a sandwich. The omnipresence isn't apparent anymore. It is actual.
I really want to get into the specific mechanics of this because I think when people hear the word surveillance, they automatically think of spy balloons or FBI wiretaps. But the notes here point to something so much more subtle, this concept of the data double.
Right, so you have your physical body, you walk around, you drink your coffee, you sleep. But every single time you interact with a digital interface, you are feeding a second body, a digital twin.
It's like a voodoo doll.
A voodoo doll is actually a great analogy. Facebook, Google, Meta, your bank, the government, they're constantly building a digital version of you. And they aren't just watching what you did in the past. They're using that philosophic calculus to predict what you will do in the future.
This is the ghost GDP concept that we teased in the intro.
Yes. In the old economy, you sold your labor.
Hmm.
You built a chair. You got paid for the chair. In the new economy, the economy of 2028, the raw material being mined is human experience.
Wait, just break that down for me. My daily experience is the raw material.
Your hesitation, your anger, your gaze. When you pause on a video on TikTok or X for 3 seconds instead of 1 second, that is raw material. The system extracts that tiny sliver of data.
And they turn it into what?
Prediction products. They sell the certainty that you will buy a specific brand of shoe, or vote for a specific candidate, or even just get depressed on a Tuesday night.
So they're betting on my future behavior.
They aren't just betting on it, they're engineering it. If the algorithm knows that showing you a specific rage bait headline at 8 p.m. increases the probability of you engaging by 15%, it will absolutely show you that headline.
So they are hacking my propinquity. They are feeding me the immediate hit of anger, which is a weird kind of stimulation or pleasure, just to keep me locked in the cell.
Precisely. You are the prisoner in the Panopticon, but you are also the fuel that keeps the lights on in the tower.
That is just bleak. But I know it still feels a little abstract for a lot of people listening. Like, sure, Amazon knows I like sneakers, whatever. But there is a place where they took Bentham's blueprints, and they didn't just build a digital marketplace, they built an entire society.
You talk about the beta test. We need to talk about the social credit system. And I really want to warn everyone listening, you need to throw out what you think you know from watching sci-fi shows like Black Mirror. The reality detailed in our sources is much more efficient and honestly much more boring, which is exactly what makes it so terrifying.
Yeah, we have a source here, Laoway86, who actually lived in the system for over a decade. And the very first thing he debunks is this Western idea that it's just citizens rating other citizens.
Right. It is not Yelp for humans.
Yeah.
It's not me rating you 1 star just because you cut me off in traffic. That would be completely chaotic.
It would just be a high school popularity contest.
Exactly. The Chinese system is strictly top-down, is the state rating the citizen. And the eyes are quite literally everywhere. They have 200 million surveillance cameras.
That number is just staggering. That is 1 camera for every 7 citizens.
And they are all connected to AI that instantly recognizes your face, your specific gait when you walk, the license plate on your car.
So let's walk through the actual tiers of this system, because reading this, it feels like the ghost of Bentham coming back to design a digital caste system.
It really is.
Yeah.
So everyone starts at a baseline of 1,000 points.
Yeah.
If you are a Class A citizen, your life is completely frictionless. You get the best interest rates at the bank, your kids get priority admission into the best schools, you don't even have to pay deposits for renting bikes or booking hotels.
The pleasure side of the equation.
But then, maybe you slip up. You drop to Class B, then Class C, you start getting visits from local officials, mandatory education sessions,
And then Class D.
the untouchables. If your score drops below 600 points, the system effectively deletes you from normal society. Your name and your face are put on massive public billboards. They are literal digital pillories.
But it's way more than just public shame, isn't it? It's complete economic strangulation.
Oh, absolutely. You cannot buy a plane ticket. You cannot buy a ticket on the high-speed rail network. You are physically trapped in your local geographic area. You can't get a bank loan. You are barred from government jobs. And here is the real kicker. If you drop to Class D, you are locked in that tier for 5 full years.
5 years. You make a mistake, and your life is just put on pause for half a decade.
It is a prison sentence without a physical cell. But look at the list of infractions of the source material. Look at exactly how you lose those points.
Yeah, I'm looking at this list right now, and some of it is just, it's weird. Okay, spreading negative information online, minus 50 points. I mean, it's brutal censorship, but it's expected.
But look at the next one. Petitioning the government.
Yeah, that costs you 50 points, but isn't that actually legal?
Technically, yes.
Yeah.
Under the Chinese constitution, you have the legal right to petition the central government in Beijing if your local officials are corrupt. But the social credit system heavily penalizes you for exercising that constitutional right.
So the written law says yes, but the algorithm says no.
And the algorithm always wins. It is the system brilliantly protecting itself against any form of accountability.
And then there's the petty stuff. Frivolous behavior.
Unauthorized dancing, minus 5 points.
Unauthorized dancing. Seriously, what is this Footloose?
It sounds absurd and funny to us, but think about the ultimate goal. Grind robes honest. They demand total standardization. Dancing in a public square without a permit is unpredictable. It's rove behavior. The machine hates variables.
So they dock you 5 points just to nudge you back into being a quiet, predictable, walking silhouette.
Exactly. But the scariest part of the whole system isn't even the punishment. It's the reward system. How do you earn your points back once you lose them?
Ratting out your neighbors, plus 10 points.
It weaponizes the entire community.
Yeah.
It turns every single citizen into a deputy guard for the central tower.
And then there's the one that made me physically recoil when I read it. Donating organs, unpaid, plus 100 points.
I know, it's grim.
The implications of that are just horrific.
It essentially creates a black market where you can sell your own body, or perhaps even a deceased family member's body, just to buy back your freedom in the system. It is the ultimate reduction of the human being to a mere biological resource.
The source mentions this one specific city, Rongcheng, that was used as the pilot program. He calls it a pumpkin village.
A pumpkin village, right?
Right. He says the streets there are spotless, drivers always stop for pedestrians, everyone is incredibly polite, but he notes that their eyes are completely dead.
Because they are constantly performing, they aren't being polite because they have good character or they're kind. They are being polite because they are terrified. It is an entire society of actors reciting lines, waiting for the director to yell, "Cut." But the director never says cut.
And we sit here in the West in 2028 and we tell ourselves, wow, sure, glad I don't live over there.
And that is the trap. Because you do live there. The operating system is just slightly different. In China, the explicit goal is political control. In the West, the explicit goal is profit. But the underlying mechanism, the Panopticon, it is identical.
Which brings us to section 3 of the deep dive, neural serfdom.
Nothing king.
I literally practiced that pronunciation in the mirror before we went on air. It's a term from a Vietnamese paper we uncovered. Neural serfdom.
It's a powerful phrase. It implies that we are no longer citizens, and we aren't even really workers in the traditional capitalist sense anymore. We are serfs.
And the land we are farming for the lords.
The land is our own nervous system. We are farming our own attention, our own anxiety, and our own outrage for the direct financial benefit of the platform owners.
We have Shoshana Zuboff's work here on surveillance capitalism. She makes this incredible point where she says, we used to think these tech companies were selling us products. Then we got a little smarter and thought, oh, if the service is free, then we are the product. Like, they are just selling our data to advertisers to sell us shoes.
But she argues that even that is way too simplistic. It's not just targeted ads anymore. It is, and I quote, markets trading in human futures.
I really want to understand the mechanics of this harvest. How do they actually gather the crop?
Okay, look at your wrist right now. You're wearing a smartwatch.
Yeah. It tells me my heart rate, how I slept, how many steps I took.
Who actually owns that data?
Well, technically, I don't really know. The company that makes the watch.
The company. And their data partners. And their partners' insurers. Zuboff explains that they aren't just tracking your steps to help you get fit. They're tracking your physiological arousal.
Arousal. Wait, like what?
Not just sexual.
Yeah.
Emotional arousal. Fear, excitement, stress, boredom. When you scroll past an ad, does your heart rate spike just a fraction? When you read a specific news story, does your body temperature change? Do you sleep worse that night?
They can actually correlate all that.
They absolutely correlate that. Meta, Google, Apple, they are ingesting trillions of data points daily. Zuboff mentions that at one point, Facebook was making 6 million predictions of human behavior per second.
6 million predictions per second. That's not a computer program, that is an oracle.
It's the voodoo doll we talked about. They build a predictive model of you that is mathematically more accurate than your own self-perception. They know you are going to get sick before you consciously feel the symptoms. They know your marriage is failing before you admit it to yourself.
And then they just sell that knowledge.
They sell the risk. They trade your future behavior. Just like Wall Street trades oil futures or pork bellies. This is the ghost GDP. The dominant economy isn't driven by making steel or manufacturing cars anymore. It is entirely driven by betting on and modifying human behavior.
And we just let them right into our houses. We invite them in. We literally buy the wiretap with our own money and put it on our kitchen counter to play music.
We call it the smart trap.
Yeah, let's talk about that comparison in the notes. The aware home versus the Nest.
This is a great historical benchmark. Back in the year 2000, Georgia Tech designed the aware home. It was full of early sensors, very futuristic for the time, but all the data was processed locally. It stayed inside the physical house. It was a closed loop.
Because the whole point of it was to serve the user.
Exactly. But fast forward to 2017 and look at the Nest thermostat.
Yeah.
To even use it, you have to agree to privacy policies that are thousands of words long.
Which literally nobody reads.
Yeah.
Ever.
Right. And those policies legally allow the data from inside your home to be sent to third parties, who then have the right to send it to their own third parties. A single, simple thermostat connects your private living room to 1,000 unseen watchers.
And the argument they always use, I mean, I hear this from my friends all the time. They say, well, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear.
That is easily the most dangerous lie of our time. It is a slogan tailor-made for serfs.
Zuboff absolutely destroys this argument. She says, if you have nothing to hide, you are nothing.
Unpack that a bit for the listeners.
She means that privacy isn't about hiding crimes or keeping dirty secrets. Privacy is about the self. Privacy is the sanctuary where you actually figure out who you are as a person. It's where you can sing completely off-key in the shower, or have a weird intrusive thought, or just cry on the couch without being analyzed and categorized by a machine.
Exactly. If you are always on a stage, if you are always being watched and quantified, you never develop a true self. You just develop a persona. You become a hollow shell that merely reflects whatever the algorithm wants to see.
It's the Palkan village again. We become the terrified actors in Rongcheng. We just have better iPhones and prettier streets.
And now, as we look at the data from the last couple of years, the walls are closing in legally. It's not just the tech corporations anymore. The governments of the West woke up and realized, hey, this commercial surveillance tech is actually pretty useful for statecraft.
We are seeing this directly with the laws passed in 2026 and 2027, specifically the UK's Online Safety Act and all the similar bills sweeping across Europe and the US.
And it is always sold to the public under the guise of safety.
Think of the children.
Right. The UK pushed heavily to ban social media for anyone under 16, which sounds noble. I mean, who could possibly argue with protecting vulnerable kids from toxic algorithms?
But the mechanism they use to do it.
The mechanism is the trap. To successfully ban under 16s from a platform, you have to verify the exact age of everyone on the platform. You cannot enforce an age ban without implementing universal digital ID.
So to log into X or Instagram, or even to do a basic Google search in some of these jurisdictions now, you have to scan your face or upload your government passport.
Anonymity practically becomes illegal. You cannot exist in the digital public square without explicitly tying every single click to your government identity.
And they aren't stopping there. The sources show they are targeting the gateways, banning infinite scrolling, banning daily streaks, and most critically, the massive crackdown on VPNs.
The VPN ban is the one that genuinely keeps me up at night.
Why that one specifically?
Because a virtual private network was the last real line of defense for the average person. It was the digital equivalent of closing your living room blinds. But now, the new legislation says, to use a VPN, you must provide your government ID to prove you aren't a minor trying to bypass the social media ban, or a criminal.
So the tool designed to hide your tracks becomes a tracked line itself. It completely defeats the purpose.
It does. And it builds perfectly into the financial panopticon as well. We really have to talk about the money.
CBDCs, central bank digital currencies.
The ultimate tool of societal control. Look, physical cash is inherently anonymous. If I buy a cup of coffee with a $5 bill, no one knows except me and the barista. But with a CBDC, every single transaction is a line of code on a central government ledger.
You can see exactly what you buy, exactly where you buy it, and exactly when.
And worse, they can program the money.
Yeah.
They can literally write code into your wallet that says, this money expires in 30 days to force you to stimulate the economy. Or, this money cannot be spent on meat this month because you've already reached your personal carbon limit.
Right.
Or, this money cannot be used to buy a train ticket out of the city because your social credit score is too low.
It directly connects the basic economic survival of the individual to their total obedience to the state.
It closes the loop. There used to be this big tech utopian idea, the sovereign individual. The idea that if you were smart enough, you could be a digital nomad, fully encrypted using crypto, completely free from the nation state. But the state is fighting back. They're actively locking all the exit doors.
So instead of the sovereign individual, we get the localized, serf, tracked, poor.
And we are the serfs.
Okay. Man, I can literally feel the listeners spiraling right now. I'm spiraling just saying this out loud. My chest feels tight. The digital walls are 10 stories high. The tower is pitch black. The algorithm is inside our actual heads. And the government is locking the final doors. It just sounds completely hopeless.
It is hopeless. If you are looking for a political solution, if you are sitting around waiting for a politician to pass a magical law to save your privacy, you will be waiting until you are a Class D citizen.
So what do? We promised them the inner Citadel at the start of the show. We promised a way out of the Panopticon.
We have to completely shift the battlefield. We have to move our focus from the terrifying external world, which we cannot control, to the internal world. We have to look back at the Stoics, guys like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca.
Now, these guys lived under Roman emperors who could literally have them tortured or killed on a random whim. Nero, Caligula. So they definitely knew a thing or two about living in a hostile panopticon.
Exactly. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor himself, but he was constantly surrounded by sycophants, assassins, spies, and endless wars. Seneca was the direct advisor to Nero, who was a literal psychopath, and who eventually ordered Seneca to commit suicide.
So they weren't just writing cute self-help books for bored suburbanites trying to optimize their mornings. They were writing hardcore survival manuals.
They were forging armor for the mind. And the core concept of that armor is the inner citadel.
Define that for us based on the readings.
The premise is incredibly simple, but incredibly hard to practice. You cannot control the external world. You cannot smash the 200 million surveillance cameras. You cannot control the social credit algorithm. You cannot control whether your bank account gets frozen by a programmed CBDC.
That is the Stoic dichotomy of control.
Right. Epictetus says it perfectly. Some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. The only things strictly up to us are our opinions, our aims, our desires, and our aversions. In short, our own mind.
And everything else, our body, our property, our digital reputation is not up to us.
Correct. The Panopticon can easily see your physical body. It can track your GPS location. It can predict your next purchase. But it cannot, at least not yet, enter the citadel of your reasoned choice. Unless you open the gate.
Unless you open the gate. That is the key phrase. Because we do open the gate. We invite them right in every single time we emotionally react to a notification on our phones.
Yes. The Stoics talk a lot about the impression. An event happens in the world, say. You get shadow banned from a social platform, or you see a news headline designed to make your blood boil. That external event is the stimulus. It's just an impression.
That's the input.
Then there is your reaction, your anger, your fear, your despair. But between the stimulus and the response, there is a gap, a tiny microscopic space of time.
And freedom lives in that gap.
That is the only place true freedom lives anymore. If you react automatically, if you get furious because the algorithm showed you something specifically designed to enrage you, you are acting as a puppet. You are a neural serf. You are doing exactly what Bentham's machine programmed you to do.
So the entire Stoic practice is just learning to widen that tiny gap.
To look at the impression objectively and say, this is just information. It does not command my soul. You actively refuse to assent to the manufactured emotion.
There's this quote in the notes from Seneca about invisibility. He says, "The wise man is quiet in the crowd."
In the modern age of total surveillance, that is not just philosophy. That is a tactical survival strategy. Refusing to signal. Refusing to perform for the camera. We live in this loud culture where everyone desperately wants to be a Class A citizen. Everyone wants to be an influencer. Everyone wants to be seen and validated by the machine.
Which makes you highly visible, and by definition, highly vulnerable.
If you are loud, you are easily categorized data. If you are quiet, you are a void. The predictive algorithm simply does not know what to do with a void.
But being quiet, willingly being a Class D citizen in the eyes of society, that comes with a massive cost. You miss out on all the perks, you don't get the fast loans, you don't get the daily dopamine hits from the likes and shares.
Which brings us to the free rider problem. The source text on the modern dating market brings this concept up, but it really applies to everything we've discussed today.
The idea that modern people just want the pleasure without the pain.
Right. People want the warm relationship without the hard commitment. They want the absolute safety of the nanny state without the suffocating surveillance. They want to call themselves a sovereign individual without actually taking the risk of being a social outcast.
They want a free ride on the system.
But the true Stoic, the Stoic accepts the cost. The Stoic intentionally vanquishes the free rider in their own soul. They realize that to be genuinely free in an unfree world, you have to be disciplined. You have to pay the price.
And what exactly is that price in 2028?
The price is disconnectedness from the artificial rewards of the system. You have to be fully willing to be labeled a Class D citizen in the computer's database so that you can remain a king in your own mind.
That is a seriously hard sell, man. Basically saying, be a loser in the digital real world so you can be free on the inside.
But is the Digital Panopticon the real world? Or is it just a manufactured game board? The Stoics call external things like wealth, reputation, and social status indifference. They are preferred indifference. Sure, they are nice to have, but they are absolutely not essential for the good life.
So the only thing that actually matters is virtue.
Virtue, your internal character. If the social credit system says, I am a bad person because I refuse to rat out my neighbor for unauthorized dancing,
You just look at that low score and you laugh.
you laugh. Because you know with certainty that ratting out your neighbor is a vice. You maintained your virtue. You kept the walls of the inner Citadel completely intact. You might have lost 50 points in their simulation, but you won in reality.
It's a rebellion of the soul.
It is the only effective rebellion left to us. Resistance isn't fighting the cameras in the street. You can't smash 200 million AI cameras. True resistance is reclaiming your attention.
We talked earlier about how the system views our humanity as a series of bugs. Our weird quirks, our deep secrets, our unpredictability. They just want to smooth us all out into perfect data points.
They desperately want to optimize us. But the Stoic outright refuses to be optimized. The Stoic becomes friction in the machine. By simply refusing to give the algorithm the emotional reaction it craves, you break the feedback loop. You become data poison.
Data poison, I really like that. You just become noise instead of signal.
Exactly. You become an unreadable glitch.
Man, this deep dive has been intense, but so necessary. We've gone all the way from the backlit cells of Bentham's 18th century prison, through the cold, calculated efficiency of the Chinese credit system, through the totally invisible manipulation of Western surveillance capitalism, and finally, hopefully, we found a little bit of solid ground to stand on in the inner Citadel.
The ground is solid, but only if you do the work to build it. It requires daily effort. It requires actively denying yourself the easy dopamine. It requires silence.
So, as we sign off from this late-night underground broadcast, what is the final word? What thought do we leave the listeners with tonight as they turn off their devices?
We live in a world of apparent omnipresence. The system wants you to believe they see absolutely everything you do. They want you to internalize the guard and police yourself. They want you to willingly surrender your mind to the algorithm.
Don't let them.
No, remember this. They can see where you are, but they cannot see who you are unless you let them.